Alright, I have a story to tell you. I want to first mention that I'm a huge fan of your channel, and I'm very interested in the paranormal and cryptids. But I've always known them to be a work of fiction, and even though I'm interested in them, I've always believed them just to be stories and nothing more. Entertaining stories at that. Long before I ever showed interest in the paranormal or even cryptozoology, I would always make fun of people for believing in Bigfoot, where they were saying that they would have a Bigfoot sighting. And not just Bigfoot. I even had friends growing up who claimed their houses were haunted, or that they had a poltergeist, and they would be the laughingstock of me. My outlook was generally, if you believed in that garbage, you were subhuman. And I don't know why I held such a negativity and anger toward that belief and mentality for as long as I did. But over the course of me aging, I've come to open my mind a lot. I believe my interests have shaped and changed my opinion more in the past 15 years than actual life experiences. My opinion has now changed, but before I get into my story, let me give you a little bit of background info on me. I'm 37, and I'm currently living with my mother while she is extremely sick and needing somebody to help take care of her. I am an only child, and my father passed away when I was very little. I don't have much memories of him, so I grew up very close with my mother. I moved out of state when I turned 18 and went to college, got a good paying job, and around my 31st birthday, my mother started getting very ill. Soon after that, she was diagnosed with cancer and decided that she didn't want to go the chemotherapy route because her saying she didn't want me to remember her that way, sickly and dying. She was able to make it on her own for a while, but in this past couple of years, it's gotten really bad, so I've opted to come and live with her for the time being, just to help take care of her. She's still able to go and drive on her own and do things, but she is very limited on what she can and can't do. I'm still mentally preparing for the day that she is going to pass, which I know is in the very near future. If anybody has ever lost a parent, then they will know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, my background info isn't super important. What I'm here to tell you is my story. I was staying home, especially with the whole COVID-19 thing going on. There's not really room or time to go outside and do much. My mother was out getting groceries and running some errands while she still can, which, by the way, is very minor since she can't do much. She gets home about 7:30, 8 at night, and she's definitely quiet. She comes in the house, doesn't look at me, doesn't say anything, and just goes to her room. Number one, this struck me as extremely odd because my mother is a chatty Cathy, and her and I are very close. She is always one to have conversation and talk to me. My first inkling that she was mad at me or something, but I had no idea what or why. So I followed her into her room just to try to talk to her, but she wouldn't respond to me. That's when I knew something was up. She calmly sat down on her bed, and I could see just how pale and out of breath she was. I asked her if she was feeling okay, to which she quietly shook her head no. Now I went from wondering if she was upset at me to grossly concerned for my mother's well-being. I sat down next to her, put my hand on her, and empathetically wanted to know what was hurting my beloved mother so much. She wouldn't even make eye contact. She just opened her mouth and said something along the lines of what I have to tell you is too crazy for you to believe. I just said, "Mom, there's nothing you could tell me that I can call you a liar for." She went silent for maybe another minute before she spilled the beans. I listened intently, making sure to give her my full attention, so she did not feel in the least bit ashamed, ignored, or not paid attention to. On the way home, my mother pulls into a pullout on the side of the road to respond to a couple of text messages from a friend. She does this often. She's not the type of person to wait till she gets home or to a certain location to respond. She will pull over at the very next pull-off she can and pull out her phone and text you back. In a way, it's really nice if you're trying to have a conversation with her, but at the same time, if you're in the passenger side and you're trying to get to somewhere, it can drive you crazy, constantly pulling over all the time to her responding to people. But she is very anti-texting and driving, so I guess safety is best. During the course of her sending a response text to one of her friends, She looks up, and running at her out of the woods to the right of the car was what she said was a lizard man. It jumped on the hood of her car and tore her front bumper off entirely before speeding away and knocking the thing off her vehicle. Then, she said it chased after her car for a couple of miles, nearly jumping on the top of the car before veering off down into an embankment. As she's telling me the story, she is visibly physically shaking, and her voice is tensing up. I was reliving her trauma through her eyes and her physically expressing the story to me. Either she's a liar and a damn good actor, or she went through something that she believes is not of this world. My mother isn't the type of person to make up stories. She is a very honest, do the right thing kind of person, and always has been. I give kudos to her for raising me with a good moral compass. Thanks, Mom. I asked her afterward what she thought it could have been, and she just shook her head saying she did not know. I had her describe it to me, and she said it was about 9 feet tall, built like a bodybuilder, head like a massive lizard, yellow eyes, large teeth, and long claws. And when it jumped onto the front of the car, it kind of belly flopped, as she described it. It kind of slid off the front, and used its other hand to tear the front of her bumper off, and nearly pulled out her right headlight. She was shaking and screaming so bad. I guess she never once thought to call the police, because her thoughts were, what would they even think? That this woman is clearly off her rocker, and she has not taken her medicine. But there's something she included into what she told me that was even stranger than the events that had taken place. Apparently, when this thing had shown itself and charged at her car, all the electronics, including her phone, started glitching out. Even though her car remained running and operational, the radio was going in and out the whole time, and her phone had died completely. She was sitting at about a 70% battery charge when the next thing she knows, her phone is completely dead and drained of all charge. There is also a very strong electromagnetic feeling in the air, but she described it as static electricity. I don't think she inherently noticed it right away, but over the course of driving and escaping this creature chasing her car, she noticed it. All the hair on her arms were standing straight up, just like when somebody takes a balloon and rubs it against your hair. She said it was very thick in the air, kind of like when a thunderstorm approaches, but there were none. A very bizarre incident indeed. I asked her if I can go out and check out the vehicle and maybe see for myself, and she just kind of shut down even more and shook her head very lightly. So I walked outside. She wasn't kidding. The front of her car is messed up. The front bumper is completely gone, and the right headlight is slightly loose. It's like she hit a bear. After seeing the car, after her telling me her story, it gave me the creeps. I told you earlier that I'm a huge fan of cryptozoology, but to me, they were all made up stories, but now I think a little differently about it. Maybe there is truth to all these sightings. Who am I to deny my own mother's experience with something I have no experience in? What's really unsettling is this is so close to home, because the spot she told me she pulled off at is only about 7 miles from the house. Whatever followed her car could have easily continued to follow her and is just waiting for the right time to come and try to get into the house, I fear. I really do have a reason now to be terrified. I guess I was kind of surprised at first it wasn't a Bigfoot, because I've never really heard of a lizard man before, but where we live it's very marshy, with swamps and thick woods around us. There are tons of deer, so I guess you think about the possibility of something like this living and existing out here. It seems it's very probable. There is plenty of places to conceal yourself, and more than enough food to survive. Maybe it's time to start moving back to a much more populated area. But then again, there are many sightings that have occurred in suburban neighborhoods and dense cities, like the Mothman, for example. I don't think we're really safe anywhere anymore.